maybe these policies aren't making our society better. Maybe we do need to rewind them. To your point, like, hey, maybe we should make it a little bit harder to, obtain fentanyl, to use fentanyl, to like, maybe we shouldn't make it so easy and available.
What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the #1 mental health and addiction podcast, the Hopeaholics. I am your girl, Natalie Eva Marie, and these are my boys.
I'm Chad.
Hi, I'm Shane.
Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and follow us on our socials and wherever you get your podcasts.
Got a new episode dropping every Monday and Thursday. Please come check it out.
This episode is brought to you by the Infinity Group. You guys, if you or a loved one is suffering, please call us today. The number is right here on the screen. We are here for you 24/7. Now, let's get into the episode.
Mark and Jeff, welcome to the Hopeaholics
Yes.
Podcast.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Amazing having you guys in town, especially because you're in Idaho.
I'm an out-of-towner.
Yeah, you are. What brings you into town?
Mark, he runs my scheduling.
Yeah?
He's my secretary.
Somewhat true.
I always, I always like to make fun of Idaho and the fact that, you say, Idaho, no Idaho.
Oh my God.
I don't know.
That's what we're
Is that a
working
dad
with.
joke?
That's what we're working with,
It's
guys.
Even worse than a dad joke.
Welcome
Even
to
worse
the
than a dad
show.
joke, because I don't even know that
Yeah.
one.
You don't know?
I know Idaho, you don't know? I never
No,
heard that
you
before.
Oh, I know that one.
No. I never heard that one before.
I have.
You have?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's either that or potato, some kind of potato joke.
Or fishing.
Yeah.
Or fishing.
The Idaho
Some good
potato.
fishing.
Yeah.
Amazingness.
Yeah.
How is it in Idaho right now?
Right now it's beautiful. So we get like there's a small window where it actually gets. I didn't do as much research maybe as I should have when I moved out there. Summers are hot, like over 100 hot for a while. So that took me a little bit by surprise. Winters are really cold, much colder. But you get this nice little window called fall. And sometimes fall is like a couple of weeks. Sometimes it's like a month or so. But we've had like a nice little stretch of fall, and it's really nice.
Yeah?
Like, yeah, it's beautiful.
How long have you guys lived out there?
I've been there a little over 3 years now, so kind of
Okay.
like settling in.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, when they talk about the 4 seasons, like
Yeah.
it truly is 4 seasons. You have like the trees change colors, and it's like, oh, it's really, really pretty. And then it's wintertime, and you're like, oh, well, 4th seasons might
Yeah.
be overrated for a little bit.
Right. It's like real cold out there. Really cold.
I don't know anything about that. I literally have never been.
I know, because Southern California is
chill.
like, the weather is,
Perfect all the time.
yeah.
72.
Yeah.
72,
64 is cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I'm in a sweatshirt today, and I think this said it was going to be 69 here in
Yeah.
San Juan
As-
Capistrano.
For the high.
Yeah, it's like a fashion statement though. You're wearing a sweatshirt just because you can, not like out of necessity.
Sure.
right.
Yeah. You're not having to pull out parkas. And
Yeah. I think
gloves.
that was the biggest thing is going out there. It was like, because here it's like, oh yeah, I have a sweatshirt. If you pick the wrong sweatshirt out there,
Oh, yeah,
you're in trouble. And so now all of a sudden I had to get a wardrobe that had to have like some
Yeah.
functionality to it. Like, no, this actually has to be like somewhat weatherproof.
Yeah, this has to keep me warm.
This has to do a job other than just like look cool.
Yeah, for sure. But we have to do a shout out to Travis because he's the one that brought you guys
Definitely.
to us.
Yeah, Travis basically, he transcends what we're trying to do. He runs, his operation on just being a leader and helping and bringing positive energy to the fire department. And he's definitely changing lives right now in the fitness arena and the diet arena.
Yeah.
And I mean, me personally, I appreciate him a lot, and he's done a lot for this fire department in his short time. And with us now stepping into what we're stepping into with the union, we understand that our membership holds strength,
Sure.
and we need to take from that.
Yeah.
And so he's a member that we're definitely going to lean on for that area of expertise to get our membership healthy, fit,
Sure.
and their minds right. 'cause
Yeah, for
that's the
sure. I
biggest
mean,
one,
that's,
right?
yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
Mine is everything.
With that said, I want to read this real quick.
Oh, yeah.
You can tell me where this came from, because It says, do not expect to be treated fairly in this life. People will say and do hurtful things to you, things that you don't deserve. When someone mistreats you, try to view it as an opportunity to grow in grace. See how quickly you can forgive the one who has wounded you. Don't be concerned about setting the record straight. Instead of instead of obsessing with other people's opinions of you, keep the focus on me. Ultimately, it is my view of you that counts. And you put that up the other day. And I was reading that in your stories, and I was like, wow, like how perfect timing that is for us, because that is technically Jeff and I. We've kind of stepped into a space that's uncomfortable.
Sure.
Even though it's right, you get a lot of pushback. But in the end, it's truly about the one, right?
Totally.
Yeah. So
I love that.
yeah. So I love that you put that up.
Thank
like
you.
You have amazing stories, and it just kind of like hit me. So I just kind of want to start off with that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Was that from Jesus Calling? Mm-hmm. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I read that every morning. That's part of my my morning routine.
Okay. Yeah. It's very inspirational.
Start my day off with that.
Yeah.
I decided when I got sober this last time that I needed an hour with God. You know, just
If that
just-
falls off, don't even worry about it.
Okay.
yeah.
Shane
Shane
fucked it up.
broke it yesterday.
Mark's breaking things already.
No, it's
5 minutes in,
it's already.
breaking stuff.
Yeah.
Sounds right.
We didn't
Sorry.
even have them until just the other day.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think it's a good way to start your day, man.
For sure.
You know?
I mean,
We
in
gotta-
reality, we're all blessed. We're
Yeah.
all, beautiful creatures just trying to come
Yep.
together in a positive light because we want the best for each other. We're all brothers and sisters.
For sure.
We all have the same goal in mind. And I don't know, obviously the temperature of the world right now is a little chaotic, but we have the opportunity to step in and create change.
Oh,
And
sure.
it's the most beautiful thing. Like, look, we're all hanging here today to create some sort of change, like what you guys have done in your so far careers up till now has truly created change for people.
Sure.
And they appreciate what Jeff and I have done is the same thing. And we're stepping into an uncomfortable situation, but it's a right situation.
Yeah.
So
And it's a necessity.
definitely.
It's a necessity if you there's the saying of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, and that's just kind of where we're at with our department right now. It's like if you keep the same leaders in, same thing with our country, right? You keep the same leaders in, but you want something different. Like you have to create change. You have to change the people at the top. You have to refresh things, and it's like one of our things is if you're happy with the way our department's running or whatever, like fine, just keep voting the same people in. But because our department morale right now is very, very low. Like the overall morale in our department, I've been on for 19 years. I would say probably objectively it's the lowest overall morale. Because working conditions for a firefighter are super simple. Like you can extrapolate it the same way you can in other businesses, right? Is like, do you feel appreciated? Do you feel like you have purpose? All these things. And it's like, that is all bottomed out. Like the guys on the job don't feel like they have a purpose. They don't feel like they're supported. We're busier than ever. We're understaffed. All those things lead to super, super low morale. And so it's like, if you want to make a change, then you have to start to change the people that are in leadership positions. And it's like, do we have all the answers? No, but we're actually going to make a concerted effort to try to fix some of those things. And so that's really like what our entire message is running for our union that we are with the department is like, hey, like we don't know everything and we're okay with that. But like we truly do have the members' best interests in mind. And so it's at that point now where it's like, we need to change some stuff up. We were just talking about on the way over here. Firefighter suicide rates, super high. First responders, military, like all of those are really high. And firefighters have a higher risk now of dying from suicide than they do from dying on the job. And that's nationwide. And that's in our department is probably even higher because it's just busier. It's
LA.
It's LA. Yeah. Thank you. That's perfect way to, it's LA.
Yeah.
Right? It's wild.
I mean, that's so sad to think about that you just dropped the stat for firefighters. And then I just learned over this past weekend is we lose more of our veterans from suicide than we've lost at war. That's that's a crazy number, and that's a really crazy thing to think about. You know?
Yeah. And I always view it as like the veterans have like an even more intense version of what we go through. Because like on the job, like there is definite trauma that you see.
Of course.
But it's not like, I don't necessarily have someone like trying to threaten my life.
Sure,
I don't
sure.
have a lot of my friends aren't dying next to me. That's a whole nother level
Sure.
of trauma to experience. But there is trauma. Like,
Oh my God. And
But
you
it's
can't discredit.
but it becomes a
the-
daily thing for you guys.
Yeah. And
You know, so I wouldn't even discount it over veterans, because it is something, but like the perception of trauma that you guys see, I mean, it's everybody has their own perception,
Exactly.
right?
Sure.
And what you guys see on a daily basis is gnarly.
Yeah, there's a desensitization effect where, and you don't, because like Mark and I will talk and we're on the same job, right? But then you talk to someone that's outside of it, and something that we almost like make light of, people will be like, oh my gosh, you saw that? It's like, well, yeah, it's a Tuesday, or, you know, I
Right.
saw it that day. And it's like something that we see literally hundreds of times.
Yeah.
Someone will maybe see one time in their whole life.
Maybe.
And then you forget of like, oh yeah, what does that do over time and over time and over
Sure.
time?
Yep.
You know,
Especially when it's not addressed
Sure.
and hit head on, because you said you started 19 years ago. Wow. And how long?
I'm just coming up on 16.
Yeah,
he's
that's
a
crazy.
baby.
I'm a baby.
That's a lot of years. So think about that compounded, you know, where if you're not taking the proper precautions or taking care of really your head, where your head's at, because seeing something on a daily basis, whether it's babies to overdoses, to just a number of things that a normal civilian, like you said, is not going to see on a daily, it starts to, you know, weigh on the mind.
Yeah, and like I grew up in Orange County, like nice neighborhood, went to a nice school. My first like firefighting job was in the city of Los Angeles, and like the first couple of years, you're seeing things, and you're like, I had no idea that this was happening even in America, let alone you know, 30 minutes from where I grew up. And it almost feels like certain things you see, you're like, am I in a third world country? Like, oh no, I'm in Los Angeles. Like, this is wild that this happens on a daily basis. And so like, I personally was like very unprepared with how to deal with that part of the job. And you were talking about your morning routine. Like, I'm still trying to develop one. I don't have a good one.
Sure.
And like, you know, full transparency, I went off the job about a little over a year and a half ago. Just like, I just had to walk away for a while. Like, I'm not in a good place mentally, whether I have to use my own time or whatever. Like, I need to take a time out, because like there were some big warning signs. And yeah, it's just like exercise or anything else. If you don't have a good routine, you get out of shape, and like mentally, I was in a bad space.
I think. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, you know how, so like we always talk about, you know, in health and fitness and stuff, we talk about, you know, what we put in our mouth, but like in overall just health and mental health, it does start with it. There's food makes a difference in your mental health, right? We all know that, but it also is a huge thing what you see every day, what you put in your ears
100%.
every day. And you guys are seeing and hearing stuff every day that we don't normally hear. I might be putting on a nice relaxing audio book about positive, amazing stuff, and you guys are hearing people screaming because their loved one just died in front of them.
Sure.
You know, and that there is, it's huge. You're seeing it, you're hearing it.
Right.
It,
even when you mentioned just like a couple things that you went through, or you said, right, babies or someone overdosing, like in our heads, it clicks.
You can like go,
Like
that
I already
call,
go,
that
oh yeah,
call, that call.
I remember that one. I remember that one. So it's always there. But with Jeff's situation right now, I think a lot of it, and a lot of the reason I asked him to step in this space of being my secretary, because, you know, I'm running for that president position, is purpose. When we did Firefighters for Freedom, we stepped into a space when there was chaos throughout the world. And we said, okay, what's right to do here? How can we fight for these people's freedoms? This is going to be uncomfortable, but let's make it happen. Now, you know, 5 years later, we're in this space where we want to change the direction of the union and the membership to bring it back. Purpose. So Jeff is a perfect person. You know, he's been going through some things for a year and a half. I need to create purpose for my friend in order to drive him forward, because he's an asset to this world. And I need to bring that out for everyone. And once people realize what he can actually do and his skills, they'll be like, oh, so glad he's here. You know, I mean, it shouldn't take that, but at the same time, like we have to look out for everyone. Once you start to give them purpose in life and just keep them busy, engaged, I think it's good for your mental health too.
Yeah.
Sure, like
Oh, yeah.
I have to take my breaks. I surf with my little girls,
Yeah.
and that's my like, okay, I gotta
Right.
step away for a second. But you just have to, I don't know, you guys know better than anyone. You have to find either that purpose or that thing that just like resets you, because you can't just keep going down that same track, or you're just going to burn out or something bad's going to happen.
Yeah, it's the same in you know, in my industry. I've been in the you know, substance use disorder. I call it addiction treatment because I think I've been in it that long. Substance use disorder didn't even exist. And you know, I've gotten desensitized to addiction. I've gotten desensitized to the death that we see regularly and in tenfold regularly since the fentanyl crisis has come about. But I the purpose goes all the way back to purpose. Like for me, I should have died in a car accident in 2000, and I knew after I survived that I was shooting dope again, and my little girl was born. And I knew that God left me here for two reasons. He left me here to be a father to that little girl and to help other people that suffer with the same thing that I suffer from. You know, and I don't suffer from the disease. I do suffer from the disease of addiction, but addiction is just merely a symptom. I suffer from this thing in between my ears.
Sure.
It wants me dead. You know, 23 years later, this thing's still lying to me, telling me that I'm a piece of shit and that I can't, you know, I can't win, that I can't succeed. And, you know, I've got 24 years of succeeding in life with some stumbles along the way to prove otherwise. But the thing is, I always comes back to the purpose. My purpose is that, man, if I can just help one other person not get loaded today.
Right.
And show them that there's a different way to live. And I'm living in my purpose. It's all about service, right? I think all of us, you know, and I look at you and I'm like, dude, this dude's purpose is to help other firemen
Sure.
that are struggling.
100% it is.
You know, and I picked that up in a second. And that's the service work right there. And when you're in service, it doesn't matter how much crap's going on, because when you're in service, you get out of yourself.
Right.
Yeah, and that's, I think, this is just me speaking personally, but you know, you get on the job, you assume a certain thing, right? And then the reality of the job hits, and you see like how our healthcare system has been abused, and how it feels like you're just this hamster in a wheel, and you're really not affecting change, because the amount of time that we're with someone is so relatively short. And the just talk about the 911 system in general is just overly abused. It's overly utilized, and it's not really like designed to handle how it's set up now. And so you're out there and you're just like driving around, and it just, you feel like you're disconnected, and you're not really doing anything. It doesn't feel like you're making a true difference. And so now it's just funny, because like you start with serving the people of Los Angeles, and then that for me like got a little disaffected with that. When in my time off, since I've stepped away for like mental health stuff, I opened a gym, and to me, like, I was able to watch people on like a journey. Instead of like this little snapshot, I got to like watch them make small changes, and I got to feel like, yeah, it wasn't like life or death per se, like a 911 call, but man, I got to feel like I'm really helping people get better. And it, like, to watch them do that was so much more inspirational to me. And so now it's like in a position on the union, instead of the people of Los Angeles, okay, now it's like all these firefighters that are struggling, they're feeling undersupported. Maybe some guys are going through addiction. Guys are definitely going through addiction.
100%.
Maybe guys are struggling with suicide, and they're not getting resources. Our department is notoriously bad at helping people that are struggling. So it's like, okay, if Mark and I can step into this space, and now instead of serving the people of Los Angeles, we're actually serving like the brothers and sisters on our department. Okay, that changes purpose again. And like that, me personally, like I get energy from that. It's like, okay,
Totally.
now I have a new purpose. Now I feel energized to do something. Whereas like, I just feel like I was clocking in, clocking out, clocking in, clocking out. And now it's like, okay, now I can really make a difference. And as cliche as that sounds, it's like, you just change the target audience, you change your role. And now it's like, okay, now I feel like I'm in a position to like actually make a difference again, which is great.
And there has to be that team concept. Like, first off, it starts with our families, right?
Yeah.
Like, my wife is amazing. I've been with her since college. I have 3 daughters. Like, they are super strong. She homeschools them. She lets me just go do my things, go do my mission. She's like, okay, you work for a fire department. You're going to take care of people. You run this business, you run this nonprofit, and now you're stepping in a union. And some people are like, when's enough enough? I'm like, when you're called upon something, you do it. You step into that space. And it's same with Jeff. Like, he has a lot of things going on. Amazing wife, amazing daughter, 2 boys. But he's been called upon to step in this space. And he's always going to step up. We proved that 4 years ago when no one was stepping in that space. Our team is amazing that came out from that. We're all, still friends. Some actually got terminated, which is like very unfortunate. And we're trying to mitigate that through the legal system. Originally, one of our attorneys was Bobby Kennedy, which you guys know. And he, he provided us with a team to move forward with that. So in the meantime, all we can do is that direct change internally. And if we bring the community in to this union and show how strong we truly are, then we can pour out to everyone else with the membership first in our mind as our primary goal to take care of. And we talk about mental health a lot, but you can only provide someone with so many classes or resources. But until you fix the root of the problem, which for us is we're understaffed, we're overworked, guys aren't even getting paid correctly, they go home with stress every day. So until we fix that situation, there's still going to be that lingering mental health issue.
For sure.
So they're not only seeing the calls, but they're dealing with all this other stuff. So that's kind of the whole, I guess, goal. Is
Have they ever grown your guys? Do they grow your guys' department based on like the population growth in your
negative group? Since we've had...
That's a really good question.
That is a great question.
That's an amazing question.
I'll just give you one stat. Since 2006, 2007, our top call volume was around 978 calls per day, with about the same.
Like a really busy day, just under 1,000 calls.
And now we're up to 2,500
Oh my
with the same
gosh.
staffing.
with the same staffing.
Or less. Yeah.
Roughly around the same.
Yeah.
So it's always between like 3,400 members. And
true. Yeah. The number of people on duty is the same. I would say the number of people that are currently like employed might be less because there's so many openings, right?
okay.
So like if Mark is due to work today and Mark's not there, one of us has to sit there, right? So an open spot makes the workload among everybody else bigger. So when we have all these vacancies of people they haven't hired for or can't hire for, you and me, we have to work extra because that seat can't just be open. You can't have an open spot. So someone has to sit there. It's constant staffing. So with a staffing shortage, the burden to like make the wheels go falls on everybody that's currently there.
And why is there a staffing shortage? Is it because people?
These are loaded questions. These are like really important questions.
well, I don't think there was ever a fix, right? So paramedic, firefighter is like the number one, I'd say, job we need. That's the one because we run, I don't know, what would you say, 85 EMS, 85% right now?
Yeah, I think we're just under 90% EMS calls.
Yeah, so it's always hard to, when we hire individuals, we try to hire it like what our city looks like. So we're very diverse in who we hire, right? So we don't necessarily hire firefighter paramedics. And when we have, right now, we have 112 firefighter paramedic vacancies. The largest we've ever had. And we're not hiring firefighter paramedics. We're just hiring firefighters. So then they're trying to get them into paramedic school through our department, but there's a failure rate. So maybe we get 12 or so that make it through. So we're never, ever going to be able to catch up. I don't know, unless we do a big...
Mark's being really nice about the problem. We're trying to appease quotas that truly don't matter when we just need to go get people that are qualified for the job.
Totally.
But if the people that are qualified for the job don't look like they're supposed to look, we're not hiring them. And so we've manufactured this artificial hiring issue, and it's hamstringing everyone, right? Because there's a lot of qualified guys out there in the fire service, but they're guys, or they're not the right skin color, or and the city's like,
oh my God, that
optics, and it's like, well, time out. Let's just hire people that are qualified, and if we just go back to a merit-based hiring system, we'd be very
Pretty
good.
sad.
That is
Pretty sad it's gone to that.
Yeah, and it's obviously it's not just our
That's the
department.
country.
Like that's
That
a
is
lot
the
of what's
country.
going on.
It's the country.
It comes down to budget too. Like our city only allocates us so much money per class per, whatever that contract comes out to. So if we don't have enough money to allocate to get more employees, then we kind of just sit at that level. And with our attrition rate, last year, I think we had, don't quote me on this, but around 250, 300 members that left because they retired. And now it's typically a 30 to 35 year career. Mm-hmm. But now you have all these guys running, 4 times the amount of calls that the older crew is running. Now it's going to be a 20 to 25 year career because you just can't maintain that level. It's just physically and mentally.
You're driving your car a lot faster and a lot harder, and the car is going to break down faster.
Yeah,
that's what's happening.
That's because you're not making any pit stops to go get your oil changed.
No, you're just hammering the floor to the accelerator, and the engine blows up.
Yeah, and you're
like,
not
I'm
getting
done.
good sleep, and you're not getting your
all
workouts
the
in,
things.
and you're how's is somebody there? Does somebody cook?
Yeah. So he works at which is Metro Fire Command, where if you call 911, he's the one picking up.
Oh, wow.
And then I'm a engineer, which I drive the fire engine.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm at a station where Travis was at a station with like 12 guys. I'm at a station with 6 guys. So it's easier for us to cook. We just rotate. It's like, today's your day. You get 5 days off, and then the next guy. Yeah.
I mean, it just sounds like with everything, it's like, it's not a one fixed problem. It's a multiple, it's a full loaded kind of issue that a lot of things have to get implemented for anything to get changed. But I think I have to commend you both because one is really being the voice and actually talking about certain things that are uncomfortable. You being open and saying that you've had to take the last year and a half away. That's where it starts. It's for you stepping up and starting this movement that you are for your brothers and sisters, because if people are, what's happened is people die in silence and people struggle in silence because they feel like they're alone and they're lost and they're the only one that's struggling, when then you have 2 guys right here that are making the change and trying to get certain things implemented, and that's where it starts. And that's what I think is huge.
Yeah, it's one of the guys I worked with at this assignment. I can't even remember how long it's been since Rainer passed, but like working with him one day, 2 days later, we're like, hey, he's not showing up for work. Where is he at? So we sent an employee out there, and he had killed himself in his bed. And it was like, this is a guy like worked around all the time, chatted with, and it's just like something like that happens, and you start you start doing the 2010 hindsight and looking back and like, was there something that I missed? It's just like really sobering thoughts when that stuff happens, and you're like, could I have done more? How did I not see it? And that's the most extreme case. But man, I guarantee you, there's so many guys on our job right now that are like barely hanging on.
Oh, for sure.
Because like I was one of those guys. Like I cycled through the depression, the suicidal thoughts, all that stuff. Like got really, really dark. And when you're in a really dark place and you're on an island, like that's a problem.
There's a stigma attached to firefighters. The stigma is that you're strong,
Of course.
that you can handle anything. And
I think with all our first responders, like from all across the board,
Yeah,
from like
for sure.
policemen and women and to all the guys that are actually of service and doing a job that is not the easiest job to do, have a stigma with more so than I guess the average person, which I know that they struggle as well, but to come out and be bold with something ain't right, like I'm not feeling as sharp as I should. Does the union or does your department have some type of protocol, or do you get like dinged if you say, hey, I'm kind of struggling?
Well, it's interesting because our department versus other departments in the area, as far as like the resources available to you for just mental health in general, is ours is a joke. Ours is very much like, oh, they obviously like had to check a box, but they're not actually like interested in truly helping anyone. Because we had like 1 to 2 department psychologists, maybe we're up to 3 now department psychologists for a department of 3,300 guys. And like I truly like bottomed out one time, and I reached out to one of the psychologists, and it was like, we can get you in about a week and a half, 2 weeks. And like you guys know, like when you're in like a crisis, like it's hour to hour, maybe. It's not like a week and a half is an eternity. Like it's you might as well not be available. And so like just not having resources available for guys when they truly need it, it's like a slap in the face.
And I will tell you, there's resources out there because you guys all have health insurance, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
That's something that should be, you know, a resource, because like we could help you over here.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
But this is like, I love this full circle, because Mark and I, unlike a lot of firefighters that like the fire department is their whole job, and it's like, cool, that's great. We've also tried to branch out into like private business and the private sector. And so our job, or one of the things we want to do as part of the union, is like, the private sector does a really, really good job at most things, because guess what? They have to be efficient. They have to have their stuff together. They're not just like subsidized by the government.
Yep.
So like, let's utilize the private sector for things that really matter. Healthcare, like, you know, mental health. So it's like, if we can bridge some of our private sector knowledge, and we can bring in outside entities that can like truly help our firefighters, like, that is the whole point, is like give these guys resources. So if it's like, hey, you're in the, you know, the Orange County, Southern California, like this is your resource here. If you guys are up in the valley, you're going to go to this. And it's like, have companies that it's their entire job to do this correctly, have them in charge of it. And like, let's actually get these guys some true help.
And how amazing is that to basically integrate your city?
Sure.
To empower them to be like, hey, you guys can help us out too. Or even internally, our membership. We have guys like Travis. Like, he's perfect for that situation. We have guys that can take care of the mental health. Like we mentioned Mark Samama earlier. He's, you know, been sober 12 and a half years, tactical games, like understands how to mitigate these situations. Whereas I wouldn't. He can step into that space. Through FRF, we had like Next Rung. So we actually started doing
Glendale,
that.
right?
To reaching out to different organizations to help us, because we didn't have that bandwidth. So we had to branch out. It's just like any business. You guys run business. You look you look internally first, and then you look externally, and you bring in that community feel with that positive energy, and then everyone wants to be part of it.
Yeah, as a private sector business, I do a lot of business to business business.
Yeah.
Correct.
Well, that's a whole part of a business model.
Yeah,
it's like, hey, I
exactly.
gotta grow my business to business model.
Yeah.
I
Like,
will tell you guys, and I don't know how it is now, but I had a contract with the LAPD.
Okay.
And their union was they had a really good union guy that was helping out with substance abuse and mental health. So I had a contract with them, and they were sending quite a bit of officers that had substance abuse issues. They get addicted a lot. Not alcohol's big
time.
huge, because it's accepted, right? Everybody can drink.
yeah.
But you know what? Like, alcohol is like, you get addicted to alcohol, you need a medical detox.
Yeah.
You ain't detoxing that on your own.
Right.
You'll
You
die.
know, it's a good possibility that you'll die. We were finding that a lot of the LAPD were getting hooked on prescription pain meds.
Oh yeah.
it's big. in
That's a
ours, too.
big
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, for sure.
And
That's
those are a bitch to get off.
100%.
You know, depending on what it is, if it's opiates or if it's an anxiety one, a benzodiazepine. The benzodiazepine, you need a medical detox.
Yeah.
I mean, you should do a medical detox for the opiates too, just to make it more comfortable. But there's so much that goes on, but there's such a stigma behind it, right? Like, wouldn't it be great if you could just walk into somebody and be like, dude, I'm struggling. Like, I've been drinking too much, or even if it's just like, I've been having thoughts of suicide. My mental health is shit. I need help. And they were like, I've got resources for you right now. Call this number. these guys can get you into an
Today.
appointment today.
And that's the key, right? Is the immediacy, and you
Yes.
guys do it all the time. So it's like, why would we try to recreate anything when we don't know nearly as much as the subject matter experts on it? Why wouldn't we just utilize people that this is their whole job and they're professionals at it? And going back to myself personally, like it is about immediacy, and it's about like someone that is really going to actually do something. Because like most of us have been to a therapist. It's
Sure,
like, okay,
sure.
this
Yeah, I
is
know.
this is a waste of
Yeah.
time. Like this is a total waste of time, and it makes you angry because you're like,
Yep.
this isn't helping me at all. So like you have to actually go somewhere where you're like, okay, I need true help. Because and you guys know this better, but like you hit this point, and it's like a trigger point. It's like this rock bottom where you're like, okay, like I'm done. Like I can't do this anymore. And like when you bottom out, it's like there's a big desperation of like, I need help right now. And if it doesn't happen, if you can't get help right then, like that's going to be a big problem.
For sure, because you have a small window, and that's when that person like yourself picks up the phone and makes that call. That phone call is like 1,000 pounds. So the fact that an individual picks up the phone, they need some type of immediate relief, or else they're not going to move, and they're going to either stay in the addiction or stay in the suicidal thoughts, and bad things happen.
Right.
So it's like in my head, I'm like, why can't I feel like it's a really easy fix where it's like you have, especially us in Orange County and you guys being local, it's like, have a list of resources so that when you do pick up the call or pick up the phone, whoever you're speaking to already has, say, 5 places or 5 people that you can immediately call. You pick one, say you call us, right? Hope by the Sea, and you'll talk to an individual, and at that moment can get you in that day.
Yeah.
So it's because
And it
local.
depends on what, like I have a contract with the longshoremen.
Oh, okay.
And the longshoremen, their union, actually, my contract is with the longshoremen, so they actually pay us as an insurance company. So they pay us a daily rate for the individual. Now they get to come in 3 times under that, but the first time it's 100% covered, second time it's 90% covered, third time it's 80% covered. After that, they have to use their insurance, but their insurance is also Blue Cross Blue Shield,
Really good,
Right,
which
yeah.
is I'm in network with.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's almost better for them to just come in the second time,
Yeah.
because it's almost 100% covered. They just might have a small deductible or out of pocket,
Right.
See,
because it's in
that's-
network.
So
on
it's like,
top of
and you
that.
guys have
This is what
insurance,
we-
so it's
yeah,
like
we
it's
do.
almost like a no-brainer, because it's not the we're not moving into people with no insurance, because that's how I first went into treatment, was I paid,
And that's hard.
and that's a different whole other element.
That game doesn't even really exist anymore because of the Affordable Care Act. Almost everybody can get
Sure.
insurance nowadays. So even people like say a homeless person that you guys might have seen on the street.
We probably did. Yeah.
You probably did. It's possible for him to get a government subsidized private insurance off of the exchange for like $50 to $100 a month. People just don't know that.
Right.
Right? It wouldn't be active today, but let's say he got it today,
Sure.
it would be active on 11/1.
Wow. See that, but these kind of like ideas. This is what like.
You're about to say what I.
Well, we always
brainstorm.
like we're framing things like as we have to run like a campaign, right?
Sure.
We're running against another person. He's running against another person. So it's all about, you're running this campaign and you're like, I'm not really a politician, and and it's like we just try to remember, like, nobody cares about me, nobody cares about Mark. All they care about is like, what are you going to do for them? So if we can offer like real solutions to like, because whether guys want to admit it or not, like deep down, there's a lot of dudes out there guaranteed on our department that are struggling. I know it 100%. And it's like, hey, you don't have to go to like someone that you work with on the job. Because that's the other thing is we have these like peer support guys. It's like, dude, I work with Chad. I don't want to like talk to
Yeah,
Chad
yeah,
about
yeah.
all my problems. I got to go work with him the next day. This isn't going to work. So it's like a totally outside entity that there's no judgment. There's no, and you're not going to see them on a day-to-day basis. It's like, that's where the change
Oh,
is.
for sure. Especially because I think what happens also is that you don't want to open your mouth and say something with someone that is your coworker, especially you guys, because you guys are firefighters. You're out boots on the ground, right? So then you don't want, so let's say, Chad to all of a sudden be like, Mark, he ain't feeling it. He's not going to be able to come through.
His head's not in the game.
100%.
So then that, even if he's not thinking that, those are the thoughts that we tell ourselves, even if it's real or
that's
not.
the truth. That should happen. If his head is not in the game, he's a danger to the unit.
Yeah, but
So he
also-
should be able to go and comfortably tell
Exactly.
somebody, my head's not in the game.
Exactly.
100%, and that's
Yeah.
a third party.
It's breaking the stigma.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like, man, you guys could really run on the fact that, like, hey, we're here to break the stigma.
Well, that's kind of what we're doing in a sense. Is we may not be the popular vote, but we're the correct vote.
Well,
We're
okay, I want to ask a question about this vote. So is what you guys are doing is, do the people of Orange County or local, or is it
it's
your
just
department
it's
gets to
just
vote?
an election for our union. So all of 3,300 firefighters, right? They get mailed ballots or they get to go vote in
okay.
person, and it's just like a general election, right? And it's like you have your ballot, and it's Mark as a president or this guy as president.
Okay.
Mark one.
So it's only in your community.
It's just
well,
the
it is,
firefighters
but it
only.
affects even further than that. Like, we're considered one of the strongest unions in the nation. So if we're able to, set the precedent for moving forward with technology, business ideas, group thinking like we're doing, like everyone will start to pick up on that. And
Yeah,
be
there's
like,
smaller unions that like look what the
you
big,
guys would be innovators in the unions to
Exactly.
start, because not just your unions, not just firefighter unions across the United States, well, the other first responders and then even including officers, the prison guards.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, these guys see shit too, and a lot of those guys are, they're dicks. Some of them are but if you guys set a precedent that like it's okay to have a problem.
yeah.
That's what we're out here doing, man. I'm trying to break the stigma for everybody. Everybody in the world needs to know that help is available and that it's okay to not, and there's no shame in having any of these problems. The only shame is not asking for help and staying the same.
Yeah, and I think we've come a long ways, but police officers, military, firefighters, you're dealing with a lot of the alphas, right?
for
You're
sure.
dealing with that stigma of like, it's still there of like, if I admit I'm struggling, then that shows weakness.
Yep.
And it's like,
But
And
they're
that's what
so
we're-
wrong.
Totally.
it is.
I'm
100%
You know,
wrong.
it
And it's
actually
dangerous.
shows strength to admit that you're.
I agree, but here's the thing. They need a third-party debriefing on a daily basis. It's not just once a week or once a month. They see traumatic events on a daily, bloody basis. So it's going to add an hour to their day where most of their population, like you said, is alpha. They don't want to hang around an extra hour to be debriefed on their mental health for the day.
Yeah.
That's a tough.
We used to,
that's tough.
There's other departments, they've been doing this for a really long time. If you go on a particularly bad call, like a lot of the calls are bad,
child
but
death or
Yeah.
something
like
that's
that
like
really
even
affects
for
that.
us,
Yeah.
like sticks out. Because there are calls even for us where it's like, whoa, that was
Yeah.
next level. Like there's departments for a long time that it's like, okay, you guys all went on that call. We're going to pull you off duty,
Yeah.
right? It's kind of like an officer-involved shooting kind of thing. It's like, we're going to pull all you guys off duty. We're going to debrief everything that happened, right? And we're going to make sure everything is set before you're able to, like, go back out on the call. Like, I've had some that are worse calls than probably anybody in a fire service will ever see. And then, like, drive back to the station and, like, press available, and it's like, okay, I guess I'm just gonna have to like process this on the fly. Here we go.
Wow.
And it's like, dude, you start doing that time and time again, and it's like, you don't want to make excuses, but like those things, if you don't have good outlets, they build and they build and they build, and then they manifest themselves in
What's that
very,
called?
very bad
Compound
ways.
trauma or compound PTSD?
Yeah, it's like, it's
Could
that
be.
for
For
sure.
Yeah.
But it's like, that's why you talk about alcoholism, you talk about, benzo, all these things, right? they're all escapes.
Exactly.
They're just escapes, right? It's just like
Yeah.
my brain can go numb and I don't have to like worry about it, because like the fuzziness, there's comfort in that, and I don't like all of my memories and stuff, they get a little blurry, and it's just a little bit easier to cope with it, you know? And in the moment it feels so much better, and then
Right.
it's like the compound effect of escape.
And then it gets worse and
it's
worse
like,
and worse,
oh
and then
my
it turns into
gosh,
everything.
now I'm out of control.
That goes back to us being the voice for the membership, right? Because we have, if you look at a union, we're basically the union, the administration, and the city. So the city basically makes the rules, and then administration presses those rules. And if they're a little too far-fetched, we have to get into some negotiation for the membership to be like, hey, I don't know if this is really right for our membership. So you have to like basically find your journey through that in order to come up with a compromise. So I think that's one of the biggest worries that we're having from the membership, or one of them, because we come from F4F. They think we're going to go in there and like, no, this is how it's going to be. When in reality, we're business mindset and we're just trying to make a negotiation, which is best for our membership. That doesn't necessarily mean like we're going to be crazy, but we're going to have a mutual respect and always be kind, but you never take that kindness for a weakness, right? So another one you were talking about was police. So the CHP, my brother's actually assistant chief with the CHP.
Oh,
so
wow.
he is the management and I'm membership. So we always have back and
Okay,
forth.
what does that mean?
So membership being like I'm boots on the ground.
Okay,
Like I'm the
oh,
one
got it.
working,
Okay.
where my brother's an assistant chief.
Pencil pusher.
And he's the one enforcing the rules.
Sure.
Like, hey,
Yep.
you're doing this, your member's not doing this, you need to handle that.
Okay.
So it's a great dialogue. He's one of my, favorite mentors. He's 5 years older, and he's always had a very level head. He's almost a politician.
Okay.
And then his best friend is a CHP union president who
Wow.
took their union that was kind of all up in arms and brought it back on track. So it's the same idea as what we're trying to do. So with that being said, our network is huge, from, union presidents to all these other people, where they just think that we're just two guys coming in and trying to take over. When in reality, like even here, right, we have you guys as a network. Like there's no way, I don't want to talk bad, but the current union membership could create something like this. Like
Right.
the reach that we have is much bigger for resources to get the accomplishments that we want for these solutions.
And it's like you only know what you know.
Yeah.
And like our current union administration are just they've done it that way because that's how it's done and that's how it's always done. And it's like, man, there's so many outside of the box ideas you can bring to this. And it's like, oh, do we have any union experience? No, but that doesn't mean we're dumb. That doesn't mean we can't like pick up
Yeah, of
stuff.
course.
That doesn't mean we can't like lean on people that have been there before and like figure it out. It's like, so it's this, the insiders versus like these guys don't know
Sure.
what they're doing. And it's like, well, that might be a good thing because now we're going to
yeah.
like see everything from a fresh perspective.
Think
And
of
it's
even
like,
the Constitution, right? That was built on entrepreneurs, blue collar businessmen coming in there for a couple of years and then going back to their job. This is the same idea. This isn't a career for me. This isn't a career for him. No. This is just to set this back on track and mentor the next person and be like, all right, you got it from here. Like, and that's a little bit of the issue with what's going on in our world, right? Career politicians.
Sure.
Like you need to get fresh ideas at some point. You just
And you're a public servant. That like you're
Right.
serving the
Yeah,
public.
because they
and
start
that's
to
missing
they start
the
to
ball.
they start to think that we're serving them.
right.
The career politicians. There's guys up there on on both sides. On my side, I would get rid of because dude can't even talk in front of and I'm not talking about Joe Biden because I'm not a supporter, but there's dudes on the Republican side that I'm like, bro, it's time to retire.
Yeah.
It's time to go.
Well, you have a maximum production output.
Yeah,
I keep
exactly.
saying this, right? You're either going to maintain that level, and if it's not doing good, nothing's going to change, or you're going to drop. You're not going to all of a sudden increase. When you get a new job or you're passionate about something and you get in there, that first year, you're
yeah.
driving as hard as you can because you're passionate about
Yeah.
it. After the 10th year, let's be honest, maybe not
Unless
so
you
much.
find a new passion, unless
Right.
something happens that
Right.
fires you up. Because
Right.
I got fired up in my 17th year in this. No, it's probably more than that. I'm 23 or 20. After 21 years, I was kind of like not burned out, but like, Okay,
Just a
going
businessman.
through the motions, like
Right.
hiding behind a
100%.
pencil.
Yeah.
And then my son-in-law died.
Okay.
My son-in-law died from fentanyl. My
Wow.
my daughter found him dead in his bed, and that's why this exists.
Wow.
Because I decided that I wasn't going to sit around anymore and let this fentanyl crisis. I had been watching it. I'd been watching it from the outskirts in my treatment center. Clients dying left and right. I saw more people die in a 4-year period than the whole 18 prior combined in 4 years
Wow.
from fentanyl. And I made a decision that I was going to fight back, that I wasn't going to just, allow this to continue. People are dying at an alarming rate. It's 300 people a day. That's 300 families' lives destroyed.
Shattered.
And here's the crazy stat. It is the number one cause of death in the United States right now for people 18 to 45. How is that? This is from the CDC. How is that okay? How many fentanyl overdoses do you guys get called on every day?
It's unregulated, right? That's what it feels like. It feels like the Wild West right now. It truly does. It's like there's not any serious regulation. In Los Angeles, at least, there's not any serious enforcement.
They're letting people just get loaded on the side of the road.
Yeah.
See, when I used to be an addict, we had to at least hide.
Yeah.
And if I was out in public, I was getting arrested and going and actually doing time for a little tiny piece of methamphetamines.
What is it? Is it Portland? The Portland area right now? They're rewinding all their stuff because they deregulated so many of the what were used to be illegal drugs, right? And then the fallout was, everybody's getting loaded at parks and public view,
terrible.
and Portland's just circling the toilet, and they're like, hey, maybe these policies aren't making our society better. Maybe we do need to rewind them. To your point, hey, maybe we should make it a little bit harder to, obtain fentanyl, to use fentanyl, to maybe we shouldn't make it so easy and available. And I feel like public policy, there's enough examples out there of
for sure.
This isn't working, guys. This is not the way to a better society.
And there's more examples. If you just go back pre 2014 when they here in California, Prop 36 was passed, which we basically almost decriminalized drugs, hard drugs, narcotics. They're a misdemeanor now. But that misdemeanor is a traffic citation. It's not even an arrest and going through the county loop. It's a here you go. And so my point being is, prior to that, you could force people into treatment through probation, through drug court, through court. Yeah, a lot of people were opting for prison, and we were overcrowding the prison system with it, which I think maybe that's unnecessary. But there's got to be consequences. You can't.
For sure.
There has to be consequences for your behaviors.
Yeah, that's a lot of actually the increase in call volume too is because of policies like that, right? So if we can kind of crack down on that on our end, we have all these members running less calls and getting, their headspace a little bit better than seeing it over and over again and almost feeling helpless.
It's got to get, frustrating to get the same call to the same house to the same person.
We had guys that we'd go on every single day. We had a guy, Lawrence, and it was like, oh, it's Lawrence's time. I know this is Lawrence because he calls every day. And we would have people you'd go on. This is where you start to get disconnected, right? You'd go, you would drop somebody off at the hospital. They would actually clear the hospital before you were even done getting the ambulance set up and ready to go again. And they could be calling 911 again before you were even done at the hospital. And you're like, wait, what are we doing here? And then you take the person back to the same hospital, and the doctor be like, get him out of here. I don't want him. And it's like, where's this guy supposed to go? What are we supposed to do right now? And so we're in this, like, the hospital's like, I don't want him. And we're like, we don't want him. And so you're just grinding around. And you're like,
and the cops can't take them.
no. And the cop, well, they're like, yeah, this isn't our problem. So then it's like,
It actually is their problem, though.
it's just like you go around and around, and
not
you're like,
race.
I got on this job to make a difference, and this is absolute.
Yeah, this is not it. This is not it for anybody. I wanted to ask you guys, like, what made you guys start this Firefighters for Freedom?
It was so the biggest, what we call the biggest psychological operation of all time in society, right? And it was on a microcosm for us because they were starting to push the COVID vaccine, and they were starting to mandate it for employment for us on the job.
Okay.
There was a large contingent of us that were like, hey, so I work in the dispatch. I'm going to rewind. I work in the dispatch center right now. We get like advance notice of things. So we were aware of the whole COVID thing coming from China. We were aware right around Christmas time. We got a heads up of like, hey, you might be having some calls. We had a couple follow-up questions to ask, but it was like no different than like when H1N1 was back in. We had a whole bunch of protocol extra questions we asked for H1N1. It's like, okay, it's one of those strains, and then, fast forward to March, and it's like, why is society going so crazy right now? This doesn't make sense because what we were seeing in the field, it's like, oh, this is a bad flu season.
Right.
Okay, cool. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, this is like what we're seeing and what the reaction is. Wow. There's something way different going on right now. And that's something that is not derived from truly like a healthcare side of it. Like something else is going on. So a whole bunch of us started asking questions, and then, fast forward to mandating the vaccine, and the whole bunch of us are like, man, I'm not on board with this. And we had at the time, like about a third of our department was like, hey, I don't think we're about this. And right about at that time, we looked to our union. You got a third of the members. So that's damn near 1,000 people, 800 to 1,000 people. They're like, hey, we're not with this right now. Mm-hmm. Look into the union for advice. And the union is completely silent and void of any type of instruction for guys. No help whatsoever, no direction, nothing. And Mark and I were like, dude, we have to like do something. Like, this is not okay. And so we just kind of like created this thing of like trying to show guys that if we all stuck together, we already talked about the shortages of staffing.
Sure.
If you have 800 people say like, hey, we're not going to do this, you actually control a lot more than you think you do.
Right.
And so our whole goal just operationally was like, you can do whatever you'd like. We're not telling you how to do it, but if you don't want to, there's strength in this group of people saying, we're not going to do this. And that at its core was really what it was. It was just us stepping into a void that was created by the current union of guys like grasping for some kind of help with this problem and just being like, okay, we're all going to stick together and we're going to try our best to just kind of say F you to the man on this thing and dare them to see what happens. And that's kind of like what happened. And so to Mark's point of like, hey, if you guys take this F4F attitude and you guys are in the union, and it's like, well, no, because as a union, you have like, we're sitting at a negotiation table and we have a valid right to this negotiation table. And there is a back and forth. With this, there was no negotiation in this whole thing. As you guys, like, it was, you shall do this or else. It was very over the top. And so it necessitated, a big middle finger reaction. And that's kind of what we tried to provide. And it's like, the way we ran that organization doesn't necessarily need to be the way we run the union. It's just like, that was necessitated from this very unique time in civilization.
And the misconception too there was we weren't an anti-vax group.
Right.
We were a freedom group. We were like there were people
Your choice.
part of our group that actually got vaccinated.
Sure.
And we supported that, but we did not support was the mandate because we knew down the road future, if there's another mandate and it affects you that you're passionate about, we're going to step into that space and try to guide you through that next. And I think that misconception took us down this, they're an anti-vax group. But in reality, we weren't. We were for everyone. We were filtering phone calls of crazy mental health stuff, all the time on the phone, taking care of people, trying to guide them in a direction when we had no direction. We stepped into that space as firefighters. When it's chaotic, you're there. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You step out and you make sure you try to mitigate that situation.
Yeah, you talk about like stress. You take like our normal amount of stress, and then you throw this on of like, get this or you lose your job. And this career is everything for most guys. Like it's everything.
Families, everything.
It's very, very hard to just go out and like recreate what we have as far as salary and benefit, whatever.
All
and
the
so
things.
for most guys, it's like, it feels like the end of everything. And it's like, I really don't want to get this.
So many people got it who didn't want it.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's so we had these
Everywhere.
guys just calling like panic, like what do I do? And we're trying to guide them through this, and it's like, dude, we're just two random dudes that tried to create this group, and so trying to navigate all that was super wild.
It wasn't just us two that created it. It was probably about 10 to 12 of us that all coordinated together with
And
it.
is it what exactly is it? Is it just
It's just a 501c3 now.
Okay.
It's a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And-
all of us got together within 10 days. We had a full operating business with zero money inputted into that. All our operating costs were all paid by us.
Sure.
Man
We
hours.
helped people that basically were put off duty through our pockets. All our money that we raised was for attorney fees.
Wow.
We never operate on anything that we got back.
So did people lose their job?
Yeah,
because
one
they
of
did not
our
get
one of our
vaccinated?
original guys, John Knox, he lost his job. He went the full gamut, never put an exemption, just stood on his constitutional rights, and he was a target. Like, I mean, there's no way around it. Like, they wanted to get him out of there, and they were able to do that. And he's still going through the legal system. We have a couple others that were terminated as well. Then it got very skewed because you go what's called a board of rights. You go in front of your administration peers, and they decide your fate. So,
So like, I'm a firefighter on the job. All three of you are chiefs, and you're there basically determining my fate. You have the case
Wow,
in
yep.
front of you, right? You're on the job with me. You're a chief, you're a chief, you're a chief. I'm sitting here, and it's basically a trial. And it's like, okay, firefighter Burmeister, you've been accused of da, 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 da. And they hear witnesses, they do all of it. And at the end, the three of you guys render a verdict.
Yay
and
or
it's
nay.
like, do I get to keep my job? Do I get suspended? Whatever. And
All because of
because of
individuals
that.
taking a vaccine or not taking the vaccine.
It's man,
That's
it
nuts.
was that was a brutal time, man. They it was mandated in healthcare, right?
Yeah.
My facilities are considered healthcare facilities, and hospitals were
Yep.
terminating doctors, nurses.
Nurses.
Employees,
Yeah, everything.
for refusing to get the vaccine. It was the state. I have a license by the state of California, and they were requiring everybody to, but we had one little thing. The CEO of a private sector company could make a decision on whether or not somebody could have an exemption, such
Sure.
as a religious exemption. So I just let all my employees know that if you
Right.
want a religious exemption, they will all be signed off.
Right, which is what a reasonable employer
Sure.
would do, right? If you look at it and you're like, man, this doesn't seem right. I really don't feel right forcing this
Totally.
on my employees, right? Now you're the fire chief. You have the same autonomy to do that. You could have easily said, hey guys, here's what we're going to do. If you don't want to do it, and it's like everybody understands. But that wasn't the case. He decided to go the route of like the heavy-handed, and it's just like, dude, it stressed guys to
Oh,
the
yeah.
breaking point and beyond. Like wildly stressful time for everyone. Wild. But it's like we were talking about, it's like it's part of your story, right?
Yeah.
So this is like, otherwise it would just be Mark and Jeff just hanging out,
No,
and we stepped into it, and
Yep.
it's like, okay, well, what's our next adventure? All right, let's go for union spots. You know,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we had
Which is
everything
huge.
in between, right? Like I started tech business, which now is going to help us with, or at least I have the ideas to help us in the future with the union. He started, a gym, so he has that aspect. We picked up all these different tools in that meantime, thinking, hey, we may lose our job. Like
Yeah.
we got to use our resources.
let's diversify
Yeah,
our skill
yeah.
set a little bit.
He
Let
has,
me
like,
learn
more of
something in
a
the private sector.
Background like law and understands that studies. I'm more business management, marketing, went to school for that. So we're like, okay, I guess we got to go do this in the meantime. But we came to the conclusion, which some agree, some don't. We put an exemption because we figured that for us, it was the right thing to do for us to press forward and to continue into not necessarily a fight, but just helping others. Because for us, if we were out of the game, we're out of the game. We
Totally.
can no longer
You can't play
influence-
anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
And this was a game. Like it was totally a game of like, okay, what's the next move on the chessboard? It's like, okay, well, I don't really feel like I should have to file an exemption for something I feel like I have
Sure.
a constitutional right for, but if I do this and they're still going to get the city to pay me and I can still do that.
Completely.
Okay. Like Mark said, this keeps me in the fight longer.
Yeah. Well played.
So I'm going to do
me.
that. Like I'm going to make this decision, which I feel like is the right one. And so everybody kind of had their strategy that they played out, and it's like, well,
And I don't think that, I still think that we get a little bit of disconnect or being unliked because of what we did. I definitely feel it from more of like the administration, the chiefs and stuff, but I've always come out for myself of a place of love, from a place of taking care of others. So that was always my intention. It wasn't my intention to pick a fight with them.
Sure.
Like, sure, I thought they were in the wrong, but they have to realize that I was doing it for purpose for this membership to help us move forward. So I think that's the biggest thing I struggle right now. He always tells me all the time, he's like, don't care so much. Like, just,
Yeah.
sometimes you got to be strong, but at the same time, I'm just that personality where
Mark is a really big people pleaser. Like,
Yeah.
and I don't say that disparagingly. He just really wants to like make everyone happy. And it's like, but then sometimes what happens is you end up like tying yourself in knots, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to make Shane happy, and I'm trying to make Chad happy, and they're saying different things, and I want to please everyone, and it's like, man, at the end of the day, you kind of just, sometimes you have to plot your own course, and you have to like explain to people like, hey, I'm going this way because of this.
So how much influence do the Chiefs have on an election for leadership in the union?
They
Zero.
have their own union. The Chiefs have their own union.
So they're not even.
I mean, they can basically, if they're at a fire station, right? So there's battalion chiefs, and they could tell the guys, hey, I think this guy's going to be better for your union. So they can put their influence, but it's just a matter of if those members trust that chief enough to follow what he's saying. But in reality, I feel like we've gotten our name out there at least enough so you know what you're getting. You see the two sides. You're either getting more so the old school, or you're getting the person that's going to take you into the future as a team, because we also have our VP that was in there the last 2 years, and he's the only reason I'm running. He's like, hey, dude, I need some help. I know that you can take us into the future. Will you step up? So because of Doug Coates, I said, yes, I will run with you as a ticket. And then I was like, okay, now I got to put a team together. And we're not drastically changing it. We're still keeping guys that are currently in there that work hard. But I was like, okay, I need Jeff as secretary because he's obviously a genius in that category. We have a great treasurer. And then we have basically 5 directors that we get to pick from. And some of those guys are friends of ours that have been down this road, and they understand how the membership works and what's best for them. So that's kind of how it pressed out. But back to your question, yes, they definitely have some influence.
And it's funny too. I like to draw parallels with like the actual, like the real world outside of the fire department. And it's like, if you think of the chiefs as like media, like big media, right? Back in the day, even when I got on, which isn't that long ago in our department history, like the chiefs were like, oh my God, the chief's here. I'm going to go like, yes, sir. Yeah. There was like such a deference to their authority. And technically there still should be, and there is, like if they say something, it's still like it's a direct order. But I think a lot of the newer members look at the chiefs and they see another guy. They see a guy that's like ranked higher than them, but it's like, I'm not necessarily going to take what that guy says as like gospel. I'm going to like maybe process this through my own filter and come up with it. And so I think the chiefs, the higher ranking officers in our department, they still have a lot of pull. Like there's no doubt about it. But everything they say isn't taken as gospel. Whereas maybe like 15 and 20 years ago in our department, I'd say it would be a lot different.
Would you guys say that the chiefs are running against you?
There's some that love us and there's some that hate us. And it's like when you take a really hard stand on something that's that controversial, like you're just not going to make everybody happy.
The funniest parts of this whole thing is my biggest mentor was a chief. His name is Joe Castro. He's very well known in our fire department. And he brought me up. Like I was pretty good. I'm pretty good at athlete, right? So I can golf. We have this thing called handball that we play at the fire department. That kind of, if you're mad at the guy, you're like, let's just go to the court, right? And he took me under his wing back in the day when I was a rookie and kind of just like showed me the route to go. And he's a chief, and he's a well-respected chief. So it's just funny that, there's some chiefs that really don't like me for stepping in that space, but at the same time, my biggest mentor is a chief, and my brother is a chief.
Yeah, totally.
So I don't know, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, but back in the olden days, I had a captain who was a neighbor. It was 5 days on, 5 days drunk.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know, that's just how he lived. That was a
sure.
small town. I grew up in Winnipeg, in Canada, not half as busy as you guys, and that's just what they liked. You just push everything down. You go on instinct, and you just survival. All 5 days, he said, I'm just on survival mode for 5 days.
It's the same. It's no different.
Yeah, that's still there 100%. And it's like, yeah, maybe you have to like, okay, maybe you have a family and you have to like function around it. You know, maybe you're not just in a bachelor pad and able to do that. But I guarantee, I don't know what the stats are. I wish I did. There's so many guys escaping the reality of this job.
I'll even
many
admit
guys.
myself, I was listening to Travis and it was like hitting with me because like my oldest is 13 now. So it's all optics, right? So you go grab that beer and she looks at you and you're just like, gosh, do I really need this right now? So you just turn that, but in your mind, you guys know better than I do. Like, it's just like, I really want this. And then you're struggling because you're like, do I need this? And still to this day, like, I don't know, I am very aware of it now. And Jeff and I have kind of come to this professionalism, especially going in the union, that we're not going to drink at all. Like, we got to set the precedent for everyone. And if you do, I mean, that's fine. But this is just how we're going to act now.
From like a professional organization, right? From union activities, all these things. It's like, because that's another issue is like we have union events and we have our current board that like they're getting wasted at like professional events. And it's like, dude, what are the, what kind of message are we sending? And it's like, if you can't control yourself in a professional capacity, like that's a terrible look. Like what Mark and I do at our own house and but like, okay, like you can make whatever argument you want there, but in a professional capacity, if we're traveling to another city for a conference, it's like, you should be on duty the entire time. Like, and that's just, that wasn't like a hard decision for us to come to.
And this goes back to even following the lead, right? So you guys have promoted basically healthy living, like mental health. This is kind of how we want to piggyback, right? So if we can, as leaders, show how that looks, maybe we can get some people to piggyback on that. And then we're just creating, you know, that positive environment where everyone's like kind of striving and doing better in life and just, you know, creating that example like you both are doing.
I can tell you that drinking less does improve your quality of life. You know, like
it's a depressant, first of all. Like, let's be clear. Like, alcohol is a depressant. So, like, if you're not feeling well and you think that booze is going to help you out, good luck. Because anybody that's put down a bottle, their problems, one, are still there. And then they feel worse because now all of your brain has a bunch of chemicals, and the neuroplasticity in our brain is like, we want that dopamine, we want that serotonin, we want all the good feels. Well, alcohol's not going to give you any of those.
Yeah. And then on top of that, it's like, okay, now I've got it. So say it's your day off, right? And you drank, and part of your mental health is getting to the gym in the morning, getting up early and getting to the gym, and like, and family is important, right?
Sure.
So sometimes getting up before the family gets up, getting your gym workout in, and getting home when your family's waking up, you're not able to do those things.
100%. Definitely.
Yeah. And I do a lot of like nutritional help with my clients in the gym, right? And so when you're trying to change someone's diet, if I'm like, okay, Chad, I know you love pizza, you can't eat pizza anymore. All you're going to think about is like, I can't eat pizza, I can't eat pizza, I can't eat pizza, I can't eat pizza. And all you think about is like the void of like, dang it. But if I tell you like, hey, every time you feel like you want to eat a pizza, eat this instead. So it's like, now you have something to fill the void space, and like mentally that helps a lot. So like to your point of like, okay, I really want to drink right now. Instead, I'm going to go for a swim, or I'm going to go for a run, or I'm going to substitute behaviors. And that goes a long ways, other than like, I don't want to drink. I'm looking at the drink. I'm going to drink. Like
it's so true.
Because a beer will make you feel better, or a cocktail will it'll make you feel better. It does something.
Yeah.
But a run will make you feel better too.
Yeah.
Going to the gym and hitting some weights will make you surfing. will make you feel
for sure.
Better.
Being outside, getting sun, being in the water,
Wakeboarding.
doing all those things that like, but it requires action, and it's a lot harder than just picking up a bottle or a drug. And that's the thing, is like everything that we want and desire requires actionable steps. And that's on the individual to make sure that like those are happening in their life to get that fulfillment. But like the whole trickle effect is where like you kind of touched on it earlier, is every individual is going to be different from what they need to feel like they're firing on all cylinders and living to their full potential. And it's finding that routine, finding that niche. So it's like somebody struggling in the firehouse, right? They pick up and they call us and they want to go into treatment. So they go into detox for say 2 weeks, but let's say the addiction wasn't their problem. However, they were like, maybe drinking a little bit too much because they were trying to like, numb the pain or numb the thoughts. But what it does is that it starts to teach them tools to handle all of the things that are happening on a daily basis, and then taking those tools and implementing them into their outside the treatment facility, whether that's reading, journaling, meditation, all of those other extra little things to kind of put together their own little routine, which then builds the discipline and the habits, and that gives you self-esteem, which then all of a sudden now you're feeling whole again because it's esteemable things.
You guys are you're treating the underlying cause, right? Because the booze and everything else in the substance is like, that's the mask.
Totally.
That's the symptom.
Yeah.
But when you dig under and you get to the root cause, it's like, okay, you do not have a mentally healthy habit set up for dealing with a stressful job or whatever your job is. Like, right? You're just not dealing with it. And so it's manifesting itself like this.
Completely.
And so it's like, okay, let's get past the booze and let's figure out like why you're turning to that. And like, that's where the true like change happens.
Oh, for sure.
So it's like, okay, like you can work on the alcoholism, but if you're not treating that's just gonna keep coming back. Keep coming back.
It'll always surface.
It'll
some
continue to cycle.
somewhere.
You can get sober for a little bit, and then the trauma will come back up. And if you don't create new coping mechanisms for the trauma or the underlying psychological issue, whatever that may be, you're going to always go back to what's familiar.
Isn't like substance treatment and like the counseling, isn't that one of the hardest things they say in like all of the whole realm of counseling and therapy? Isn't that one of the hardest ones to get into, just because there is so many relapses and stuff that occur? There's so much like the failure rate of like sober, not sober. It's so high. Isn't that one of the hardest like areas of counseling to get into?
It's to get into. I don't know if it's hard. You really have to have a purpose to want to stay.
Oh,
because you do see so much failure.
yeah.
But one thing that they taught me in school was that I'm as much responsible for the failure as I am for the success, which means I'm not responsible at all. All I can do is give people the tools, and then they have to make the choice on whether they pick up those tools and use them or not. And so it kind of helped me to like, because when I first got in, I was like, woohoo, that was a win. Somebody's successful. And I really, internalized it and felt like I really did something. I changed somebody's life. And that's not true. I just gave them tools, and they changed their own life.
Yeah.
And if they don't, that's not my responsibility either. But the problem is like now in today's era, as you guys know, when people relapse, their potential for death is 100 times what it was when we just had heroin on the street. Because the thing is that fentanyl by itself is 50 times more powerful than heroin, right? And packaged, I just want to be clear, it's packaged in a really cute pill that's not scary.
Yeah.
You guys seen black tar heroin?
Oh yeah,
right?
it's like
It-
just the delivery system alone is enough to scare the crap out of people.
It looks gross. It fucking stinks.
Yeah.
Takes time.
You got to cook that shit up on a spoon.
It's super
inject
dramatic.
that. It's a whole process. But this fentanyl is 50 times more powerful. And it's just like, and the half-life is like really short. So your addiction rate is really high. And you think and I'm going off topic for a second, and I don't even know if I'll be able to come back, but you would think, what kind of business person would want to kill 300 customers every day? Well, the answer is it's creating 10,000 new customers every day.
Right.
So those 300 are just
Who cares?
Churn. They call it churn in business. It's like, it's just
Yep.
the percentage we
Yep.
lose.
Yep.
As long as we're taking in more than we're losing,
yep.
we're still ahead.
It's like
Yep.
the theft in a
Yep.
retail store.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
They they lose. It's a percentage of
Yeah.
what they lose.
It's like an acceptable loss.
But it's zero loss of life is acceptable to people like us.
Right.
Obviously not to the cartel and to China, but and I sometimes think our government, because they could do something. They have power.
Of course. I mean, it's just like with your guys' organization, it's like there's so many levels to making a real change with what you guys want to do. You know, from the fact of hiring actual just who is qualified,
Yeah.
that, you know, to give people some relief on shifts, you know, the hours and the you guys are running around with your heads cut off, essentially trying to cover multiple positions, to making sure that that is covered. So it's like there's so many little things that need to be implemented for like a real change. So what is it now, like going forward, that you guys are having to do? When is this election?
So the election's on the 22nd. There's mail-in. They can get those if they're time-stamped by then those will be counted. And then you can go into the union and vote as well. But I think like the biggest point probably we want to get across, the difference is the three things, right? Our trust, our transparency, and our teamwork. Like we've already proven in the past how you can trust us. People have been calling us all the time. They know that we're there from them. The transparency factor is a big one right now because it hasn't been so transparent. We've been left in the dark. So with many different obstacles or many different realms that we're going down, we're going to share what we're doing, whether that be, you know, a video weekly or just our billing, what that looks like.
Just like any entity in power, right? If your government's not being transparent, you're immediately like distrustful. Any organization. So like it's hard to, it's like a relationship. It's hard to like over communicate.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah.
And so the same thing, like as a union leadership is like, if we're working on something, even if we're like stalled out, just letting them know, hey guys, we're working on this.
Oh, for sure.
And we're not at a resolution yet, but just letting you know, like, here's what's on the table. And it's like, okay, that's cool. That's cool to hear that because we don't hear anything now.
Yeah. And I guess a big one is the teamwork, right? Like it's not just a teamwork within our union, like me, Jeff, Doug, and this union board, but it's a team with the city council. It's a team with the administration. We want to create the strongest union, the strongest fire department, once again, in order to serve our citizens the best we can, right? Because it's a service. That's what we're here for. We're here to provide them with the best service. And if we can't have our membership in their top shape mentally and physically, we're not going to provide the best service.
Agree.
So we just have to work together as a team and come together with a lot of positivity and, you know, negotiation, agreement, and just do the best we can to get this back on track.
I wish I wish that we could help in like the vote or something,
Well,
you know, getting the word out.
But you guys can. What you're doing today, you're helping us out, right? We're getting the word out. We're networking because in the future, we're probably going to need you guys. And who knows, maybe you'll need us for some situation.
I already did. You guys helped me when I had not you guys, but
but we're all the same. We all know the Orange County guys. Yeah.
I had a little fire in my house.
Yeah.
Was that with a fire extinguisher?
Yeah.
Okay.
I put it out before
That's
y'all
right.
got there, but
You saved your house.
I did save my house.
There you
That's
go.
crazy.
Yeah, it was funny.
Like Travis said,
We're
literally,
hiring.
like that's the best because you literally mitigated that situation where it could have been very bad. You could have lost.
I think it was really close to like my attic going, because it was in the attic.
A lot of attic
You know,
fires.
it was the fan in my daughter's bathroom.
Yeah.
Caught fire.
Oh.
And it was heading up there. I could see the little flames.
Dude, once it gets up there, it's
It's gone, huh? It goes fast.
that's a tough one.
I pulled the first, that crappy fire, those crappy.
Yeah.
I just want to let the people know, don't buy those ones. Get a real fire extinguisher. Don't buy those crappy ones that don't do anything. Get the one that when you shoot it, the shit comes down on top of you. I didn't know. I had no idea what was going to happen. I'm standing right under it. I pointed it up. And then I just got covered in white, dude. Fire was out though.
Made it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So it's just one of those things that we hopefully when we step into the union position, now we actually have like an organization with like a budget.
Sure.
We have like operating money. We have like the amount of influence that we can
for sure.
provide now goes up. We can team up with other companies. We can bring a lot of change, and that's really all we're trying to do. We're just trying to like level up, get a little bit more horsepower. We have a seat at the negotiation table for the city. Like it's a more powerful entity.
Yeah.
And so if we can use that power to empower our members, I think that's the whole goal. Is just make their lives better.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Truly.
I mean, good for you guys to go outside or go against the grain. Even though it's not really, you're just basically, what I look at it, this is amazing. You're giving individuals that are working a deciding factor in their health.
Yeah.
We're here to give hope.
Yeah. There you go.
Man,
Truly.
that's next level. That's
And
good.
it's like, for us, I know for a fact, like whatever we can do to help you guys out in any way, we're super down. And then obviously it would be amazing to be a resource for your guys or your women to be able to call upon and get into treatment or get into something where they don't feel like they have to call somebody that they work with. We're an outside source. They don't have to see us every day.
Right.
Well, we're like very, very serious about that because the mental health crisis in our line of work is a massive problem, and it's really like an untold problem that a lot of people aren't acknowledging yet, even the people going through it. And so if we can actually give them legit resources like we talked about, like that's going to, even if it makes a difference for a couple people,
Totally,
like
it's
that's,
huge.
that's really,
Because
really a
those
big
couple
win.
people, they have families, and it affects, like, people
Yeah.
forget, like, whether it's the addict or the alcoholic, but somebody that's struggling, that's a trickling effect because you're not isolated. Yes, you might isolate yourself at times, but if you're married, if you have children, if you're
Even on
your
the
business,
job.
yeah, exactly.
On the
Your
job.
partners, your team.
It's like dropping a pebble. This is my analogy. When you help one person, it's like dropping a pebble in the water. The ripple effect goes for so far. We have no. It affects thousands of people's, tens of thousands of people's lives sometimes, in that one person's lifetime. Because everyone that they come in contact with, life is changed and affected different. And what if that one person's life that you changed was mine? Because my life has affected tens of thousands of people in a positive light because one person, well, there's a group of people that they were judges, and I got nudges from them and the Orange County Sheriff's Department. And, I give shout outs to these guys because I ran from them for so long and they chased me until I finally was able to surrender and give up. And then that judge gave me that opportunity of not going to prison and, going to a rehab center. And because of that, I got into this business of rehab, and that was this Hope by the Sea where you're at right now is 22 years old as of October 15th. We've had over 10,000 people come through our facility.
What an analogy. You saved one and you saved thousands.
Millions, actually,
Yeah.
because,
even this podcast alone.
yeah. And now it
Now
is.
millions for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
Just by one. Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
I mean, that's what you guys are going to do within your organization. Just by this, you creating the Firefighters for Freedom is because what it starts with is someone having the balls to actually open their mouth and to talk about the things that people are probably talking about behind closed doors, and that's where it starts, is like for people to stand up for others and being the voice for them. And then all of a sudden it's attraction other than promotion. And then all of a sudden people are like, oh, well, Bob, he's in treatment right now. I probably should maybe ask how he got whatever's number, and that's kind of the trickle effect then continues on for years.
Right.
And it's huge.
Yeah.
And you just can tell. I like your whole love analogy, because I when I started Hope by the Sea, we started it as a loved base, because this was in 2002 and there was still behavioral modification where they tore you down and they just yelled at you and shamed you and made you feel like, and stripped you of everything. Well, we wanted a love-based model, right? And that kind of molded me through the years of who I am. And it's like, because people people, you still hear stuff, people talk crap,
Sure.
but if you continue doing what you guys are doing with love,
Right.
that love becomes so contagious that all the guys are going to be like, eventually everybody's going to catch on.
Yeah.
And some won't, but
That's the thing, even with the guy I'm running against. Like, I love him. Like, he's a great man. He's a family man. But I just think I can do a better job in the
Yeah.
future, and he shouldn't take offense to this. It's just, I just think I can take us further.
No, you can.
Yes.
Right. I know I can.
And you're going
And
to.
like, in the grand scheme of things, right? We're loved by the one. Like, so why don't
Yep.
we provide love to all?
yep.
I agree.
Well, awesome, guys.
Yeah.
I really appreciate
Yeah.
you guys coming down.
So nice to meet you guys.
Yeah,
and
you too. Thank you.
You guys got our support 100%.
For
You guys
sure.
are great dudes.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
it's kind of funny, like the 3 firemen that we meet, they all could be like the calendar
I know.
guys, huh? Like,
That's Mark's job. When the president, he gets to be on the calendar.
It's a-
12 months of Mark in different
There you
poses.
go. There you go.
Jeff's gonna have to grow his mustache back though.
Yeah, I
we need
know.
the mustache. back for the
100%.
calendar, bro.
are you, yeah, what's up? I know you guys have mustaches. I thought that.
He had the,
I-
if you look
I had a
on
pretty good
our FRF site.
Oh, yeah, I will.
You'll
I
always
will.
recognize him because he has a big
Oh my gosh.
mustache.
Can't
Mustaches
wait. I
have
can't
a
wait.
shelf life at some point. You get
Sure,
so
sure,
tired
sure.
of them. You're like,
Yeah.
God, I'm
Yeah.
done. And then I'll cycle back again.
I think there was Jeff Burmeister and there was his mustache. Like,
love it.
legit.
Like whenever I see a guy with a mustache, it's either one of like 3 things.
Bartender.
No, my first thought is either a fireman, cop, or a porn star.
Oh gosh.
Huh? What?
Could be
Yeah,
one
the
of
porn
two
mustache. He
of
eats
the
porn
3.
Mustache, true,
Okay.
true.
On that note,
And at least you guys also don't have the stigma of being donut eating motherfuckers,
No.
right?
No donuts here.
And the only service call that people sometimes put makeup on for when you guys are coming over.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
I mean, how many
Really?
times
Oh,
do
yeah, huh?
girls,
Come on.
girls fake like, that they need mouth to mouth?
Only when Mark walks in, they're like, I fainted. Mark.
hilarious.
I'm gonna need mouth to mouth.
Oh my god. Okay, now we're getting off.
No,
topic.
it's fun. It's true. Girls love firemen, man.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
I always
Emily?
wave every time I'm on a run or anything.
Right, Emily?
Locally, now I'm out. I always wave to our like fire trucks that go by. All of them are hell of cool. They're always. I'll get a honk sometimes.
It's also
and all the
ingrained
boys.
in you, right? Like you
Yeah.
grew up like, oh, those
Yeah.
guys are here that I can go to. Like my daughters know, all my fire
Yep.
friends, they can trust them.
Yeah.
And it's a
You're
trust.
right.
Yeah, it's
You're
a
right.
trust thing for sure.
Well, thank
Yeah,
you
you
guys.
guys don't have the stigma of
No, like
cops
cops?
have a little bit of stigma.
Yeah.
And
A
it's
little
got
bit,
it got
a
well,
lot.
it got worse.
And
They weren't always like that.
No.
Yeah.
It's just the whatever. Goodbye.